This is the new guide block, a basic print reading and fabrication project. What is the print trying to tell us? With the print, the first thing I want to do is look at the bottom. We want to see the information that's given to us, like what it is, who owns the part, are there any tolerances, and the other information that we should know. That's going to be in the title block at the bottom, sometimes called the legend. Next, we want to look at anything that are notes. So on the print somewhere, there's usually a box or a list of notes. In this case, in the lower right, it says 1. Break all edges, 2. Tackle parts first, 3. Inspection before welding, and 4. Details parts A and B. So these are important things that the writer of the print wants us to keep in mind and pay attention to as we are reading the print and building whatever object it is. In the upper right-hand corner, if it is present on the print, is going to be the bill of materials, sometimes abbreviated BOM. And the bill of materials is like a menu of different parts that make up the particular thing that we're building. And when reading this thing, we want to look carefully at what it's telling us. So like a menu in a restaurant, quantity is going to tell us how many of each part we want, and the part number is the individual part of that object, and then maybe its name, what it's called, maybe some other details about it that are important to know. Now on this print, there's also numbered circles which also point to each of the individual parts on the print itself to give us a better view of what they are. Also, part A and part B are called out in a detail as well, identifying those parts. Now on this print, there are the detail parts A and B. Now these are very important to look at. Now on the print itself, there's a detail parts A and B, and then within the bill of materials, you see parts A and B, and they have the part numbers 3 and 4. So it's really important to keep this straight, which one is which. The detail is there because if you look at the parts carefully, there are differences between the two. Okay, one has a part that measures 2 1/4, one has a part that measures 2 1/2. So we want to make sure the correct part goes in the right place and in the right orientation. So this is something to really keep an eye on. So the writer of the print that's calling out that detail specifically for us to keep in mind. Here's another look at the part numbers. So they're circled in red, part numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in the print itself, they're circled in the little circles 1, 2, 3, and 4. I want to check and make sure that the right part is going to the right name and part number. Now, prints are supposed to come to you perfect, but that doesn't mean they are. Sometimes they're mistakes, so it's very important for us to check all these details as we're looking at the print for the first time. And if we catch them, let people know, hey, I've caught a mistake. This print needs to be revised or corrected. Now in green, you can see quantity. So the part number and there's a green arrow and it tells you how many of each one we're using. Now in this case, we're using 1 of each. But in maybe some other build, there could be 1 of one, 2 of another, 3 of another, maybe 5 of this one, or whatever number it is. And we want to make sure and keep these things straight and not get confused. Circled in blue is another layer of very important information, and here are all the dimensions we need to know. So these are measurements given to us that are very important for putting the part together. Now, sometimes you may have a very detailed print where every single part is given dimensions so that you could make all these parts. Sometimes you may have a part which is just focused on the assembly. Now, in this print, it gives us kind of a more on the assembly side. So it gives us the dimensions of the parts which were already manufactured. So in this case, the parts aren't, you're not making them, they've already been cut, and you're putting them together. So the dimensions on here are focused on checking those individual parts to make sure they are the correct size, and then giving you the dimensions needed so you know where they go. So we want to read all these dimensions carefully, check them to make sure they are right. Because again, there always could be errors somewhere. I want to make sure that if there are, we catch them. In dimensions on the print, we have ordinary ones like 2.5 or 3/4 of an inch, fractional dimensions, but circle with that blue square, we have a special kind of dimension here. And very often in a print, it'll be, unless otherwise specified, you follow like a general tolerance for a print. Now, there aren't any on this thing because we're keeping it simple, but in this case, this dimension between the two uprights has a specified dimension. So we want to see what it is. And on this one, it's called a unilateral tolerance. And it's telling us that it can be a little bigger than this dimension, but it cannot be any smaller. Now, it could be the other way too. This is just called out to tell us that something goes in this space. This is the most important dimension on this object, and we need to be very careful that it follows this command. And we want to do everything in our power to make sure that it stays within these dimensions. Because if it doesn't, then the part is no good. Here's another look at those detail parts A and B. Now they are colored blue and red, and in the front side, top side, and right side view, they've been colored to give you a better look at what you're seeing and how they're oriented. And remember, the front side, top side, and right side view are like you're looking at the object and turning it in your hand. So um, part A is going to be in the front. When you're looking at it in the front view, you see how that changes in the top view and how that looks in the right side view. And part B is going to be red and it's in the back. So in the front view, it's partially obscured, but you can see a little bit peeking up on the left side. Now, specifically for welding, we use weld symbols, and only welders understand these things. If it's like a machining print or just a general print, those things won't be on there. But if they are, most people don't know what they mean or how to read them. So these are specific to our trade. Now, they're circled in red, and we've got 3 of them on there. And again, going back to notes, it says that we want to tack all the parts first and then have it inspected before we weld it out. Now, when we get to the welding out part, we want to see what is it trying to tell us. Now, the ones circled in ovals are just ordinary fillet welds on both sides of the indicated area. Remember that the arrow side is on the bottom, so that's going to be what the arrow is pointing to, closest to the arrow. The, above the line is the other side, which is the side away from the arrow. The square in the upper left is a little different. Now, that is a U groove, and what it's telling you is all those starred areas, okay? What it's telling you is you're going to U groove that flat part out, the seam, and then you're going to weld it back up and you grind it, leaving a flat profile. Now, the reason is because in many cases in structural work and other kinds of welding work, you don't want to leave any empty gaps around. Those can get filled with water, corrosives, and generally they just don't look good when things are painted. It looks unfinished. Now, the star saying typical means that now if you ever see that on a weld or anywhere else on the print, it means for every feature exactly like the one that is called out by the arrow, you're going to perform the same operation. So that's used when you don't want to have 6 arrows pointing to the same thing when you can use one. So that's a very, very common thing, typical, sometimes abbreviated TYP, look out for it. What it means is you're going to do exactly the same thing and everything that looks exactly like the one it's pointing to. So that brings the end of this print walkthrough. Work carefully, check your measurements before welding, and if you click on the QR code in this slide, it'll take you to a 3D VR model of this object that you can turn around, and it has the welds in red on this. You can see where they look like and where they go.